Chance or design, which is more reasonable? Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about 4 different aspects of humans. That would be you guys, okay? I don't know, my wife doesn't necessarily think I am, but sometimes I am. But anyway, so we're gonna start right at the top of the food chain. Okay, we're not gonna talk about amoebas and euglenias and paramecium. Y'all remember those names in high school biology? Okay. All right, so we have no problem recognizing design. Here are some examples. Here's a really good one with a golf cart, in case you guys would recognize that. A nice watch. I think that's about a $10,000 watch. And that car is a little more than $10,000. That's what is that? A Lamborghini?
A Ferrari.
It's a Ferrari. The man who knows his cars. And this is the new Freedom Tower. Of course, a banjo, a guitar, and we know, you see that immediately, you know it's design. Now, let me do a little disclaimer here. People who do not believe that we are designed, we mean people or plants and animals and whatever you see here, we'll use the case that these are all man-made objects, and that when you get into life, it's maybe self-perpetuating. Okay, and that's what we're going to look at today. We're looking at 4 different aspects of the human being and what is the truth, the facts are, and we'll see if we can make a judgment on whether or not it looks like it's designed or it's came about by chance. And those 4 are the brain, which most of us have some of that, brain matter. The human cell, okay, how complex it is. We're going to talk about the, sorry, I'm drawing blank, huh? Yeah, no, the blood cascade is if you cut yourself, what happens to keep you from bleeding to death? Any physicians here? Okay. All right, so let's get started. Many leading evolutionists admit that the universe and life appears to be designed. They don't agree that it is, but they think it does. They do admit it appears to be designed. And we've gone, not all of them, but a large amount of them will say this. From Charles Dawkins on down, and we've been through that before. If you've been here before, we went through those quotes. The basic evolutionary argument is that given enough time, millions and billions of years, life could produce very complex forms as we observe today without any supernatural guidance. In other words, you happen by chance. We all happen by chance. Everything you see happened by chance. That would be their position. Okay. Other scientists argue that based on what we observe about the extreme complexity of life, it is not possible for life to have emerged from non-living matter, and that based on mathematical probabilities, the possibilities that the evolutionary claims are true is not even close to possible. People I've read on the subject and heard on the subject use a lot of statistics about probabilities of certain things happening. How does, the simplest form of life, or the probabilities of of our universe being fine-tuned for the life that we live, which we've gone through again. You've been here, okay. Most scientists that disagree with evolutionary theory hang their hats on 2 ideas. One, and these 2 ideas are intricately, easy for you to say, entwined, okay? Intelligent design refers to a scientific research program as well as a community of scientists, philosophers, and other scholars who seek and have found evidence of design in nature. The theory of intelligent design holds that certain features of the universe and of living things are best explained by intelligent cause, not an undirected process such as natural selection. Now, one of the ways they claim that you recognize intelligent design is by something called irreducible complexity. That means that you describe a characteristic of certain complex biological systems whereby they need all of their individual component parts in place in order to function. In other words, it is impossible to reduce the complexity or, to simplify, an irreducible complex system by removing any of its component parts and still maintain its functionality. The system could not have developed a part at a time. In other words, which we won't use this example today, but the bacteria flagellum has about 30 different proteins. Some act as bearings, some act as flagella, which is a propeller, some act as a motor. It's a proton-driven motor. If any of those 5 things weren't there, you wouldn't have the bacteria moving through fluid, and it wouldn't work. That's a simple example. All right, let's start with the human brain. Which is more complex, the human brain or supercomputer K? Anybody have any idea what supercomputer K is? Okay, we're going to tell you what that is. Okay, the human brain consists of about 200 billion nerve cells, which are called neurons, that are linked together by trillions of connections called synapses. As the tiny electrical impulses shoot across each neuron, they have to travel through these synapses, each of which contains about 1,000 different switches that route that electrical impulse. In total, one human brain could contain hundreds of trillions of these neural pathways. Okay? Hundreds of trillions of neural pathways in the brain. Now, what does that speak to? That speaks to the complexity. And it works. Some of us, it doesn't work as good as others, but it still works. You have thought processes, you're able to reason, you're able to compute and think. And you're able to see, feel, touch. You also can have emotion. Okay. And the supercomputer K in this corner of the fight, now that's not really given, that is really a picture of the supercomputer K. All right, it's in Japan, and it is, a human being standing there next to it would probably be about 3/4 as tall as one of those boxes, and that goes on this way, and it goes on this way, and what it is, they put together over 80,000 computers, basically, processors. The Japanese supercomputer named for the Japanese word ki, meaning 10 quadrillion, is a supercomputer manufactured by Fujitsu, currently installed at the Riken Advanced Institute for Computational Science campus in Kobe, Japan. The K computer is based on a distributed memory architecture with over 80,000 computer nodes. So that's a computer. That's I don't know what it has in the memory or the working memory, but there's like 80,000 of those somehow hooked together, and what it's supposed to do is make it as fast a computer as possible. Of course, you could add another 80,000 to make it faster, I guess, but there is a limit. Go ahead. So which is more complex, that computer or the human brain? Okay. The Fujitsu K computer took 40 minutes to process data that it takes 1% of the human brain 1 second to process. The Fujitsu K computer employs 83,000 processors connected by 1.73 million virtual nerve cells and about 10.4 trillion virtual synapses. All right, now, just in face value, without getting into the science of it, because believe me, I'm not a computer scientist, and I do not know what it took to put that together. Okay? I'm also not a physician or maybe a creator that could understand what it took to put the brain together. And that brain starts out as nothing. And we all start out as one cell, as you know. I guess it's 2 cells, isn't it? An egg and sperm? So it's, no, the egg and sperm come together to make 1 cell. Yeah, okay. I'm not a gynecologist either. But anyway, so somehow the brain comes out of that. Okay? It's a big sponge, starts soaking up information. You know, can you remember, can anybody tell me how old they were when they remembered something? How young were you when you were, what's the earliest memory you had? Yes?
I was 2.5.
2.5. Anybody else?
Hospital after being born.
The hospital after being born?
You know, where you, yeah, and the people coming to visit and.
Really? Wow.
And I didn't take LSD.
Yeah. You're rare. That's good. I don't know what the age is. I remember when I was, my first memory, believe it or not, was when I was 3 years old, and I went outside in the spring, and it was cold, like 50 degrees. And my mother said, "You get back in there and get your jacket on." So I said, "Okay." I went back to the jacket. That's what I remember. First thing I remember. All right. Anyway, do you see the contrast? Okay. And I'm not saying you can't, but can you conceive of this? That's kind of like real size, isn't it? This happening by chance. I mean, you might find it in your brain somewhere that's possible. I can't fathom it. Fact about the human cell. Now we're in the second one, the human cell. The average human cell is made of somewhere between 35 and 100 trillion cells. I'm sorry, the average human body, period. We talked about this before. I find it interesting that they can only get between 35 and 100. I mean, it seems like it might be easy enough to calculate. I've heard there's more bacteria cells in your body than there are human cells. Anybody heard that? Okay. But they're obviously very good bacteria, I guess. But that's a lot. Okay? How small do you think they are? We can actually see them by electron microscopes, but man, 100 trillion of them? All right. From blood cells to nerve cells are approximately 200 different types of cells. You have all your functions, your skin, your organs, your eyes, your hair. These are all different types of cells. You know, when a cell is born, I wonder how it knows, well, what am I going to be? You know, they don't know what they're going to be. I mean, somehow it's decided they're going to be a hair cell or a heart cell or something. I don't know. It's just amazing to think that this just happens, but it's okay. Each cell contains a nucleus that contains a strand of DNA that is 6 foot long and coiled. You've probably heard this before. And a strand of DNA in each of your 100 trillion cells, except for your red blood cells. They do not have a nucleus, by the way. I found that out today. They're 6 foot long. Each cell contains thousands of enzymes that it made itself. The DNA provides digital instructions on which enzyme and proteins are made in the cell. This cell over here, which has all these parts, which I will not read because I don't understand, we do have a YouTube that kind of gives you an idea about what the cell does, okay? But in the DNA is the digital instructions on which enzymes and proteins are made in the cell. There are 28 billion nerve cells, or neurons, in the human body. The longest neurons are 3 feet long. Can you believe that? A human cell is 3 foot long. It's the nerve cells that run from your hip down through your leg. Okay, but there are 100 trillion of them, not those, but 100 trillion cells. Each hour, this really blew my mind, 96 million cells die. And, of course, 96 million are created. You know, the way cells create cells is through division, okay? They do a carbon copy of themselves. Now, I put these 7 things here in these lovely pictures to illustrate, again, how complex every one of 100 trillion things are in your body. Now, you may have 100 or 70, I probably have 150 or 200 trillion, I don't know. But anyway, let's go on. All right, third thing, DNA. That's what I couldn't remember. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. And I said it without looking at it. Wasn't that good? I practiced that. Look at it. Self-replicating material present in nearly all living organisms. As the main constituent of chromosomes, it is the carrier of genetic information. And remember what I said. Almost every cell in your body